Hello, it's a new video and I'm in a new space. I've actually moved into a new house and I've got my own special room just for working in. So this will be my new backdrop. Hopefully the sound is pretty good in here and there's not too much traffic sound, things like that. But yeah, new space, new world, new year, new US president as of time of recording. So I thought, well, I've been thinking a lot about the job that I'm in now and the jobs that I've had previous. I was talking to someone who's just started a new job, who's just joined the games industry, and we're talking a lot about experiences I've had in the past and stuff. And I just got thinking about it a lot, and I thought, you know what, I've been wanting to do a video like this for a wee while, so why not just jump in? I felt like shooting something today anyway, so let's make it this one. It is going to be stuff that I've learned uh, professionally as a designer over all the different jobs that I've had. So every job, every role, every project I've done, you pick up different things, and I just thought, you know what, I'll just put it all together. So I'll start off with university. It's not necessarily a job, but the university that I went to was actually Abertay University, and part of their philosophy is that they try to have programs that, well, the way that they say it is that they want to kind of teach you how to work in the actual real working industry, in the games industry, instead of teaching you. I didn't get too much theory. Theory is something that you necessarily, if you want it, you can chase it down yourself and you can learn about it yourself and write about it in papers and things. But the actual core learning that you do at the university is supposed to be industry experts investing in university students so that when they come to join their studios, they're a bit more ready to go. It's, there's pros and cons to that in a lot of ways. I think you had a lot of students who didn't necessarily really know a lot of the theory stuff, myself included. As I still don't really feel like I know much about game design as the art of game design, the philosophies of it, the theories of it. I was a lot more like the practical side of things, just getting stuff done. The communication sides of it, those kind of things. So I always felt a little bit like I didn't really fully understand what it was that I was doing. Like it never really felt like I was like, oh, I'm making X decision because theory tells us Y. But what I did pick up when I was there, I did. So I studied at Abertay University. I did two courses. I did the Bachelor of Arts in Game Design and Production Management, and then I did the Masters in Games Development. So 5.5 years total. And one of the big things that I picked up from that, like being surrounded by people from different practices, different backgrounds, like coders and artists and producers and designers, it was mostly about learning to work with different personality types. This is something that if I'll keep going like I'm talking to someone who isn't in the industry, who's thinking about it maybe as like a younger person who's like at high school and thinking about their options or whatever. I'm going to pretend that that's who you are. If you're not that person, maybe you just pretend that you're a high school student. But one thing that you very quickly have to learn, and this is the case for all jobs that involve you working with teams, but when you're in the creative industries, personalities is very important. Like learning how to work within a team, and it's not necessarily just knowing what it is that a programmer does or what it is that an artist does or how it all fits together. It, in a lot of ways, what you're gonna have to pick up is learning to communicate and negotiate, come to conclusions with people of different personalities. If they're coming at if they're coming at something with a different worldview, say you've got a particular problem that you need to solve with your project, if they're coming at it from a certain point of view and you just think that's not going to work, there's no way that's going to work, that's going to make the project worse. If you're having a design discussion in a team for a unified project and you all want what's best, then when there's conflict, it's something that everybody has to kind of work their way through. You have to learn how to not make that conflict about you, about your emotions, about your, like not taking something as an insult. If you put forward your design, very, very quickly, you're going to have to learn how to remove yourself from that design emotionally. It's your hard work. You believe in it. It's your passion. All of these things can be true, but the reality is that if you're working with a team of people who are all coming at it from different angles, and if most of them disagree with you, it's not them necessarily attacking you and your value and your ideas and your merit. It's just the pitch. You put together a pitch and you pitch it, you see what happens, you see what comes back, you run with that, you work with that. That's a big thing, is you're going to have to go through that. Everyone else is also going through it. Hopefully everybody gets through that pretty quickly. Hopefully they're not still in their mid-30s and they're still taking everything as a personal attack. But yeah, university was mostly about finding myself, finding my voice, and finding when and how to use that voice. When everyone else around you also has their voices. Ironically, the job I got after university, there wasn't a whole lot of people's voices being used. I've been avoiding this one for a long time, but it's been long enough. Fuck it, why not? So I worked at a place called Serious Parody, and we made professional wrestling themed games, as you'll see here. I'm a fan of professional wrestling, so it was quite an easy job for me to go for. And I want to say from the outset that not all of it was bad, and I'm not going to just shit on companies that I've worked for in the past. That's not what this video is about. So I'm not going to go into that. Maybe in a future video we'll talk about the intricacies of it. But the reality is that the hierarchy of this company was very much, there was the one person at the top who made all the decisions, both widespread, business wise, company wise, hierarchy wise, like all of that stuff. But then also on the project itself, they were heavily involved in pretty much every design decision that was made. It was their pet project. They were very, very strong-armed about it. They were very involved with it. Yes, there were examples of like little macro decisions being made here and there about things that seemed innocuous, but anything that had kind of big implications, either they were involved in the discussion or it inevitably went through them. So, like I said before with the director example, like the author, the auteur, that can work. That can be something that's, if they're very, very good, if they have a really, really strong head on them, the understanding of what they want and why it works, and ultimately that it does work, then that can be great. That wasn't my experience there. The products that we made were, in my opinion, extremely shoddy. There weren't a lot of design decisions that were made with any kind of real knowledge of what's good and why it's good and what it works. It was very, I think it was intuitive. It was just, I think it's gonna work, so put it in, and then that's it. There wasn't really much in terms of player testing or So one thing that you might have to learn as a designer is working in that kind of environment where you're designing for a project that you don't necessarily believe in, you don't necessarily think is any good, and you don't really have much control. But your entire role in that project, if you're there as a designer, is to advocate for the player. You're this is true. I was told this in university by one of my old lecturers, that a designer is an advocate for the player, or a game designer is an advocate for the player, and I completely agree with that. I think that's spot on. I think that's true even if you're not going to be the intended player. If you've never played a real-time strategy game in your life because you just don't like them, but then you find yourself working on a real-time strategy game, you still have to advocate for the intended players. So you have to learn how to negotiate on their behalf. It's always easier if you are the intended audience. You know, like I like a lot of rhythm games. If I was ever going to be working on a rhythm game, I think I would be able to fight that corner a lot better than if I joined a real-time strategy game, for example. But that's a skill that you're going to have to learn. And I think that becomes a lot easier when you have a much broader understanding of lots of different types of products, of different genres, of different player types, personalities, psychology. Once you start getting a wider grasp on these things, it will inevitably make you a better negotiator, because you'll have more examples to pull from of comparison to be able to say, oh, it worked well in this, it didn't work well in that, I think this is the direction we should go. Your pitches will be a lot stronger. And I think this is true for every type of creative. The more of a broad, the more broad interests you have, the better your language will be for negotiation, for advocating for the player, or the viewer, or the reader, or whatever it is. So yeah, series parody, biggest thing I learned, negotiation tactics. People who I still know who worked with me in that role will know how much I'm holding back right now. But I think you'll understand why, because I'm already 18 minutes into this video, so let's keep rolling. So the second job I got was a place called Hubio. They are, I think if you Google them now, they're literally just a company in Canada that are like a limited company for something completely different to when I was hired there. I think the Hubio I was hired with no longer exists, pretty much. I learned some hard truths there about your value as an employee, about your relationship with your employers. This is a design video. I just spent like 20 minutes talking about exploitation of labor. I did that with the Marks video. I'm gonna move on from it now, talk about something specifically design related. Oh, I got hiccups now. How many times do I have to shoot this section? Oh, the light is terrible. Oh my god. Ignore. Right, fuck me. Take number 3. Hubio Limited. That was the second job I ever had. They pretty much don't exist anymore. I just spent 20 minutes talking about exploitation of labour. I learned some hard truths about your role as an employee, about your value you have to your employer, about the relationships that you have with people who are above you in an organisation, in a hierarchy, about the realities of the creative industry being incredibly fickle and unsafe in terms of job security. These are truths about the creative industries. This is about the arts industry, is that job security is pretty much non-existent. If you manage to have job security where you are, great, that's fantastic. But I would always warn people to never implicitly trust their employers. But that is just purely for shielding, to protect you, because I know how hard it is to have regular, gainful, high-level employment in design. So take from that what you will. That's more of a job-related thing. And if you disagree with that, again, grand. I use that as a way to kind of shield me from potentially exploitative tactics used by the job market and the labour that you provide. So the one after that, I actually changed city. I moved out of Dundee. All of those were in the same city. I moved out of Dundee, and I pretty much completely rehauled my life. I had to work in the basement of a top man after I got a job that my sister was able to get me because she was the manager there, just to bring in some money because I had no money and I was living in my partner's uh, parents' house for long enough until I was able to get a flat of our own. Um, and then I went to a local shopping market. So I'm here in Edinburgh now, and I went to a shopping market. There was a shopping centre, and there was an empty lot there that had a sign in the window that said that there was a place opening up called EVR, E-VR. And as far as I could glean from the poster and from the sparse bits of information, it was basically like just said like coming soon. I was able to somehow track down the person who or the people who were starting this thing that I didn't even really know what it was. It just said EVR, and I just kind of thought, well, E as a prefix usually means electronic, and VR, as far as I know, stands for virtual reality. That's kind of the world I come from. I've literally never used virtual reality before, but I come from the world of software and electronics and all that. Let's see what I've got. Nothing else to do. I'm applying for jobs every day, and none of them are coming back to me because of various things. So I managed to track them down. Like Twitter or something. I can't even remember. And I shot them a message just saying like, "Hey, I see that this new place is opening up. Are you free for I don't even think I said like I'm looking for work. I think I just said like, are you free for a chat? And they said yeah. They got back to me and just said, yeah, come on in, we're going to be in the building at this time or whatever. I went over, I spoke to them. By the end of that meeting, I pretty much had a job. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. So it turned out that it was a virtual reality arcade. And it was basically they bought out a lot. They were renting a lot in a shopping center, and they were going to fill it up with PCs and virtual reality machines, and pay, or people would come to pay to play on the machines, and that was it. It was an arcade, virtual reality, but it was a bare bones startup, independently funded, just a business venture from these two people. So I got a job with them purely as to help run the arcade. So it was minimum wage, working in a shop, like I'm running an arcade. I wasn't doing any of the business stuff. I wasn't doing like the admin or anything. It was literally like working at the desk, helping out customers. It was customer service. So it was my first time going back to customer service since high school. I was not comfortable with that. I had spent enough years out of that world where it was a big knock to my confidence to go back to retail. It felt very much like huge major steps back, like I had failed in my design career. That was how I felt then. I think if it happened again, I would still feel that now. But one thing I have definitely learned, or a few things I've learned that I've learned since then, is your value as a person does not come from the output of your labor and the amount of money that you make. And it seems weird to say that out loud, like it's some kind of revelation, because ultimately we should all just know that. That should be built into the fabric of life. But the reality is, the world that we live in, it's commonplace. I think that's an understatement to call it commonplace. It's entirely 100% of people who have their entire environment and the world around them that teach them that your value and your confidence should come from how far you're able to climb these societal ladders that are placed in front of you. I'm not over that. I think if it happened now, if I lost my job now and I had to go back to retail to pay the bills, that would be a massive knock. And I would never ever want anybody who currently works in retail or has worked in retail for a long time to think that I believe anything less of them. That work is incredibly fucking hard. You deserve so much more money than you earn. Almost everybody, I mean, the minimum wage should be raised anyway. Oh my god, I'm getting back into it. I apologize, I'm going back into personal politics, but the reality is that if you're working in design, if you're looking to enter these career paths, you may come to these hurdles as well. Most people that I know who work in design have come to these hurdles where they've had to make difficult decisions to pay the bills, and that's just the reality of it. It shouldn't be that way. Arts should be funded more than they are. Arts should be valued more than they are. But that's not what this video is about. So I worked with them for a good while, working in the arcade. Now, design. Oh my god, we can actually talk about it as something I learned design related from my jobs. This was the silver lining, and I'm annoyed that I never learned this earlier. I kind of wish that I had learned this back at uni. Every single day, customers were coming in, and no exaggeration, 99% of people who walked in the front door said something to the effect of, "What is this? I've never used VR. Can I use VR?" That was the level of lack of knowledge of virtual reality. So this was only a couple of years ago. Most people have never used it. If they had used it, it was the one where you put your phone in and you look at a shark going past you, and that's it, you know. But these were like HTC Vives. They had like mounted cabling above their heads. They were able to move around in spaces that we'd put, you know, with like floor mats and all that. You know, very quickly we learned this spiel. We'd walk them through what they were about to expect, what options were available to them, like what games and software that they were able to use, and then also help them through it as they're playing it, as they're experiencing it. And we're juggling lots of people. So we've got kids, adults, full families, groups of friends like teenagers, birthday parties, the whole lot coming in, and most of them were experiencing new technology and new software and new ways of interacting with video games, completely fresh to them, completely new. And I got to see that. Bear in mind, I've got screens on every single pod, so I can see exactly what they're looking at. I can see the person, I can see what they're seeing in game. I'm seeing hundreds of them a week. The amount of raw data, the amount of raw feedback you're getting, unedited, in the moment feedback, was so unbelievably valuable as a designer. Because you're getting to watch somebody be transported to a new world with the headset, being given the controllers that are their hands, and they're giving you live feedback of what works for them, what makes them go ooh, what makes them go oh my god, what makes them shit their pants with fear, what makes them really annoyed that it's not working. You can see what they're trying to do. Like, you can almost in real time watch their brains go, I want to be able to do this, I'm going to try and do it, and then either fail or succeed at that. And if they succeed in it, they get that little moment where they get to go, oh my god, that's so cool. Or if they fail at it, they go, why didn't that happen? I tried to pick up a ball off of a table, but it wasn't letting me pick it up. Or I picked up a ball and I let go of it and it didn't fall to the ground with like expected levels of gravity. It just kind of just stayed there. And they go, oh, that was a bit disappointing. If you light a fire and then you throw something into the fire, you want to see it burn as a gamer. But if it doesn't happen, they go, oh, and then they get bored and they move on. From a game design point of view, from a software design point of view, from a UI design point of view, from a virtual reality interaction, how people interact with new spaces, they're teleported to a brand new space and you get to see what they prioritize over other things. So you're getting to see, and you're getting to watch in real time, people of different backgrounds, technology experience, and age interact with software hundreds of times a week. and you just get all this raw data, and it just felt like I was sitting on this treasure trove of information. Every time I played a game after that, every time I thought about a new project, if I had a new idea, it was being cycled through that experience of it was going through that treasure trove where I was thinking, oh yeah, if I had this idea for a game about, I don't know, climbing a mountain, I think, oh, that would be a really cool idea to have like a mountain climbing game. And then you go, oh, I remember like 95% of people who tried to reach up and grab things in virtual reality were failing because it wasn't clear, or failing because they weren't expecting for that to even be an option. So they just weren't even trying. People in virtual reality, the only reason that they look up is if the world around them invites them to look up. But if it just seems blank and empty, then they don't bother like looking around. A lot of people didn't even move their feet. You had to tell them, just so you know, like they would like physically be reaching for something, but they wouldn't. Their feet were planted because they didn't even expect. You go, hey, just so you know, your motions are being tracked. Your position in the world. Just take a step forward, and you'd see them like. You step forward. The way I was described it was like it's like chiseling rock off of people. People come in the front door and they're covered in rock, like statues. And then when you put them in the headset, you have to like give them little nudges so that it kind of frees up their arm, and then they're like, oh yeah, I can reach that, and oh, I can actually crouch down. I can move down and up, and so I can crouch down and reach under reach under a bed to grab a key or something. These options don't necessarily, they're not intuitive to people. One major thing I learned from working at a virtual reality arcade was watch people. That sounds so creepy. Watch people interacting with things. That doesn't sound any nicer. You know what I'm getting at. Like, don't assume that your way of interacting with the world is the same as other people's, and don't assume that translates to the things that you make. Even if it's something as simple as like a website design. Website design is not simple, but it's where you place your buttons, the color of the buttons, the expectations of things. If you click on something, do you expect it to move over here, or do you expect it to open up this way, or small things like that, all the way up to like I don't know, if you're doing like a heads-up display for the inside of a car, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to put the speedometer here because when I'm driving, I'm always kind of looking at this bit, or my car works this certain way, and I've had this car for 5 years, and I'm a car enthusiast, so I know that the speedometer should go here. But then if you made that car and you put the speedometer there, and then it went out to people of all different types of backgrounds, and then you got this feedback going, yeah, people keep like driving like 20 miles an hour over the speed limit because they're not looking at the speedometer. Why are they not looking at the speedometer? Well, because we've asked them and they all just say they didn't even like know it was there. Or they have to turn their head to look. I never turn my head to look when I'm driving. You should turn your head to look when you're driving. But these are some hypothetical situations that I'm just manifesting out of the air to get across this idea that quality assurance isn't necessarily just finding bugs in your designs. Quality assurance can start before you even start designing something proper. It can start from just watching live actual users engaging with the thing that you're about to replicate. Ultimately, it goes back to what I was talking earlier about, you're an advocate for the player. You are not the one that you're making this thing for. It's them. It's the people that are going to be buying it, playing it, sharing it. So understand them better. And that was actually, out of everything so far, working in a virtual reality arcade, I learned more in that about design, about effective design, than I did from the previous 2 jobs I did as game designer. Hence why I'm making this video. I'm currently at 42 minutes. I know there's a bunch of this that's going to get cut, but it's probably still going to be very long, so let's round it up. I have since I'm working as a graphic designer for the Scottish Government. One little kind of a nice note, I guess, to leave it on, is a couple of things. One, you can learn any software. Software shouldn't be a blocker for you getting a job. The reality is that employers will put ads out for jobs that will ask you to be able to show experience with X, Y, and Z software because they want you to hit the ground running. You should be able to learn it. I've made games on... I made the entire art suite for the first game I ever released on the touchpad of a 15-inch, not even a laptop, a notebook, like the touchpad. I did all the art for it on that. In GIMP. You can make it work. Free software exists. Blender, Inkscape, GIMP, all that. You shouldn't need to be able to use the expensive software. If you're able to use those, you should be able to use the expensive versions of that software. There's a little hill that you have to get over at the start just to learn the UI and the new words and the jargon and stuff. But that's... Walk into an interview with complete confidence that you have absolutely no problems picking that stuff up in the first couple of weeks. And conversely, Adobe charging as much as they do for their products is actively suppressing working class artists, and I will never forgive them for that. And it is incredibly frustrating that jobs are defined based on how much income you have to be able to learn how to use specific software that is completely unviable for working class people. And additionally, universities shouldn't be using that software as the be all and end all for teaching those students, because then once they leave university and they no longer have access to that software, they're fucked. The software market is actively suppressing working class artists from any kind of social mobility. Fuck them. But you can learn on free software and you can make it work in a job market. You just have to have the confidence to be able to do it, because otherwise you will talk yourself out of jobs. Apply for them. I promise you, apply for them. Even if it says you should know Adobe whatever, go for it, please. And an additional nice little extra one is I've talked a lot of shit about, like, you know, your employers and not trusting, being cynical. A unified team that you trust, that you think has your back, and you know you're genuinely emotionally invested in that team and you working together, is worth its weight in gold. Oh my god, you have no idea like how much that can improve every aspect of your product, of you, of your mental health, of your work-life balance. A unified team is worth its weight in gold and should be treated as such. So try and find those people. The creative industry is full of people like you. I promise you. I have found more allies, more people that I've found joy in being around, like genuinely, that make me a better person, that I would trust with. I mean, I came out a few months ago. Oh god, it was almost a year ago now. Actually, it's probably coming on 8 months. And I had absolutely no qualms with coming out to my team, because I had spent enough time with them and truly believed that they supported me. And those kind of human connections, so much more important than any kind of relationship you have with money, employment, all those things. You've got to be able to pay your bills. I understand that it's difficult out there. But specifically because it's difficult to do this type of work in this type of industries, value the things that should be valued, and hold them tight, and try and make the best decision for you. Don't make the best decision for what you think is expected of you. You know, climbing rungs of a hypothetical ladder to reach an invisible brass ring. Completely meaningless. I promise you. Yeah, that's some stuff that I learned through the roles that I've had. I promise I'm going back to doing theme park videos. I am going back to doing theme park videos. I've just taken a little bit of time off from them for a couple of reasons, but I'm in behind the scenes. I'm actually doing like online courses about theme park design. I've been reading more materials, like I've been reading more books about theme park design and stuff. I'll see you next time, whenever that is. Bye. God damn.